Oh, that's.
Hi, Chad. We've started the broadcast over here.
All right, awesome. Welcome. Right, I need camera one, camera two. Camera one, camera two. Yeah. So, welcome. We have this session where it's a Las Vegas Google App Summit. We have 200 visitors here that are in the last few days. And our goal with this session is to do this live broadcast with anyone who might not watch now. We've got a room full of people. Hello. So, guys, slam. That's it. Thank you for watching. Thanks for attending. Turn my volume off there. And so what we're doing this session is do some things live. We've got Jim Still is behind the scenes kind of switching this along with Wendy Gordon. You guys want to add to this?
All right. Well, Chad, thanks very much. We're excited to see your session. We're excited to share that with the rest of the world, and we're back here taking a look at the today's meet that we're going to be using. Well, so if you have a second, maybe share that link for everybody here at home.
Yes. So our resources are at this web address. Actually, let me do this because that doesn't work. So in today's meet, we also have a today's meets where backchannel chat that'll be monitored. You can go to the web address if you're watching this live, today'smeet.com/EdTechTeam. I know it's a little hard to see up here, but it's today'smeet.com/EdTechTeam. And the resources for today, I've added a link in that chat. The link for any of the resources from my sessions are at tinyurl.com/ my last name is Kafka, Kafkalv for Las Vegas, Gafe, Gafe. And that will be in the chat if you want to head to the chat if you're watching from afar. You can throw some questions in there. Some of our other team members here at the summit are going to be monitoring that. They may answer your questions in the chat. Otherwise, we'll try to go to some Q&A when the live session here is done. So I think that sets everything up, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. So our session is called Freaking Out on Forms. Right, that was weird because you guys are live and they're not. But so Google Forms. So what this session is aimed at is kind of it's labeled as an intermediate session. So we're going to start off. I'm just going to mention some of the basics and kind of show the creation of a form, and then get into some of the ways that you can automate your processes with using Google Forms, and give you some examples that we use in my school district. I work just outside Milwaukee in Wisconsin. I work for Franklin Public Schools, and we use Google Forms all the time to quickly collect data. Everything from our secretaries doing a lunch order for an in-service day, she might send a form out, to teachers giving quizzes and using some of the add-ons that are out there to auto-grade and kind of get quick formative data on their students. So I'm going to highlight a bunch of those. I told the people that are live here in the room that if you want to, and as it shows on your screen, there's an app called i-Nigma, that's available in the Android store. It's available in the iOS store. It's a great app to have on your phone because it works the same on both devices. We encourage kids in our classrooms, if they're using their phones and they want to quickly get to a form, the teacher will throw maybe a QR code on the screen, and you just launch Enigma, get it in the crosshairs, and then it'll take you right to the form. So we're all about trying to get kids to what they need to get to quickly instead of getting kind of lost in sometimes the little hiccups that can occur when using technology. So I mentioned that as I will be throwing some QR codes on the screen. I think that will work from afar too if you're watching, if you happen to have that on your device, where you can scan a code, fill out some data, and then I'll show you how we can automatically grade. We'll show Flubaroo very quickly, as well as some of the other great add-ons that are out there. So I like to start with this, some things to know. If you're totally new to Forms, first off, a form is really two files. When you go into your Google Drive and you want to make a form, and I'm going to do this in my work account because there's some extra features in a work account. So scroll up. I'm going to make this a little bigger so those watching from afar can see, and you guys can hopefully see better. When you go under New, Google Forms is not listed right here. You have to go down under the More area, and if I scroll down or zoom out a little bit, you'll see that Google Forms is buried kind of in that submenu. So Google Form, when you start a Google Form and you create those questions that you want to collect data on, that's one file. when the user, the students, whoever it is that's filling it out, all of that data ultimately gets funneled into a spreadsheet. So then all that data, each submission is a row on the spreadsheet. So I like to mention that because sometimes I will work with staff that are new to using forms in spreadsheets, and they'll wonder where their data is. So I'm going to point some of those things out as I build a very quick form, just so you see how they're linked together. The form feeds into the spreadsheet. I did mention that. What's nice is when Google updated Forms, about maybe 2 years ago now, 3 years ago, they made it so if you were collecting massive amounts of data and you filled up a spreadsheet completely, I think the limit now is, I forget if it's 100,000 cells or something like that, you can de-link the form from that spreadsheet. So if this is the form I'm working on and this is the spreadsheet, you can in the form de-link and then say, put all the data in this new spreadsheet. So if you're doing something that's very big in the district or in the building, you can de-link the form and make it go to a brand new spreadsheet, make the data go to a brand new spreadsheet. That was a complaint in the past because if people were collecting massive amounts of data, they'd hit a limit and they couldn't do anything. Some teachers I know use this as a strategy when they start a new school year. Some just go into their spreadsheet, they might just wipe out all the data, delete all the rows. Others might just de-link it and make it go to a new spreadsheet. So I mentioned these up front so I can point these out when I show you live what we're doing. One of the nice things now in forms, you can add images and you can add videos. So some of the forms that we use in our building, we have a digital, we call home base as our homeroom at the end of the day. And we have kids fill out a pass during the day. If a teacher requests them, teacher will say, student, come on up, fill out this pass so you report to me today during home base. And we have a little video in there that explains to the kids what to do if they forget. Once they do it, once or twice, they know exactly what they're doing. You can use a video in your form. So if you had maybe you doing a talking head video explaining what the students are supposed to do in this form, or if you're explaining it's a quiz or an essay, you can, or an essay, sorry, a quiz or a test, you can record yourself and have yourself available in there as well. I'll show where that is. And adding images, we use that if we create a quiz. The teacher, I've got a screenshot of a little bit later, the teacher might make something in a Google drawing that says, and if it's visual, it says this is choice A, choice B, choice C, choice D. You can have a picture and then have the question below relate to the picture. So a lot of possibilities with this. It might not seem like a big deal because we have images and videos in a lot of our tools, but when they added this a few years ago, this really opened up what we could do. Or a screenshot of a math formula. If you can't type a math formula right in, you could type it in something else, take a screenshot using your computer, and add that in. And then add-ons I mentioned, we'll get to that in terms of how those work. So let's just jump into Google Forms. I did link this up in the resources. I'm not going to play it for you live. Jenny McGarrah, who is actually presenting another summit right now in Chicago, she did a very good quick 4-minute overview of just starting a form. So again, this is linked up in the resources. If you go back to this later, all those resources will be there for you. I'm going to do a little bit of that right now. So let me switch over to my district account, and I'm just going to go to New, down to More, and I'm going to make a form. So because you work in a school district, your school district is in a Google Apps for Education domain, and what that means, let me check one thing here with our video feed. Screen share. Looks like our screen share turned off there. There we go. Let me get that back. Okay, there we go. Sorry if we lost you there, the people that are watching. What I did was I went into my Google Drive. I created a form. Like any time I make a file in my Drive, make sure I want to go ahead and give it a name. I'm going to call it Fake Quiz. Let me make this a little bigger for both audiences here. When you're creating your Google form, because it's a Google Apps for Education account, these settings that are right here at the top, these are only available in a school district or a work account. If you're in your vanilla Gmail, meaning you just go and sign up and you have your own personal Gmail, some of these settings are not there. What's nice about this is when you're working on creating something for your students, this very first checkbox, if this is checked, it says that when the student fills out the form, they have to be signed in with their Franklin account, our school district account. The second one works hand in hand with it, where it will automatically collect those usernames. The username meaning the entire email address. So how many times, maybe if you've done a form before, have you put email as a choice question down here? And if a kid types it wrong, if you set up something to email to them, it won't go to them. By doing this for your district's forms that you create, it automatically will create a column that will show the students' email addresses or staff's email addresses if you need to collect that data. This also saves a step depending on how your email addresses are. In our district, our email addresses for our staff are first.last@franklin.k12.wi.us. So this takes out by checking this. We don't have to ask their name because if they're filling it out, it's automatically there. I think I was talking to some of you guys with your accounts, and I don't know that it's necessarily your full name. Isn't it like first initial, last name, something like that? So that you might still want to do a name question down here when you're designing your form. But those are there to auto-collect if needed. These other ones get into if you want to show a progress bar. So if you've ever done like a SurveyMonkey or some of those other surveying tools, if you turn this one on, I'll turn it on so we can see it when we do our form. This will create, this will have a little status bar at the bottom saying you're about 50% of the way through or not. We'll see that in a minute. This you can choose only allow one response per person. So this is saying this requires login, so this has to be checked. So if you were giving a quiz and you were worried that it's going to try to take it more than once, by checking this, you can make it so they only take it once. There's some pros and cons with that. If you did check it and the student did something, there was an error, they lost signal, they didn't complete it, then in order for them to take the quiz, you'd have to be creative and try to figure out a way around that. So very rarely do I check this. What I end up doing is if I was giving a quiz to students, I might sort alphabetically in the spreadsheet so I can see if there's any double entries. So this you can either use or not use, but there's ways to make that work. Shuffle the question order. This is great if you're using Google Forms as a way to give quizzes. You're doing a multiple choice question form. It'll shift around for each student. So your number one is different from your number one is different from your number one. So it just gives more choice for creating a quiz. All right, so actually creating a quiz questions down here. If I was going to collect a name, I typically do a name question first. You can choose from these different types of questions. So if I just wanted text, something short like a name, text is just a little line like this. Paragraph gets into where you can actually get a longer answer. So if they were wanting to write more than a sentence, I would say paragraph text would be good for that. Multiple choice. I forgot they can't see live, so I do that. You can fill in the questions for multiple choice. Option 1, option 2, as you go down. So let's do this one as a real one here. We'll do text. You can check this and make this a required question. Obviously, I want their name to be required. This will put a little red asterisk on the form, and you'll be able to see, or the person will see that they can't complete the form without doing that. All right, so let's freak out a little bit on forms. Here's one of the cool freakouts in forms. Right here in advanced settings. Does anybody ever mess with this, the advanced settings, a little bit? Okay, how have you used advanced settings? Somebody, since you nodded your head, how have you used this before?
Just make sure that.
You'd like to think about it? I'll come back to you. I'll give you an example, and then I'll come back to you, because I like giving other ways to use this. So, because this is a text question, if I turn on the advanced settings for this question, there's this thing called data validation. By checking this, let's say that this was, let me think of an example we used. If we did this was an email address. I can choose here for data validation, I can choose text, that this text must contain, or not contain, or it must be an email address, so that if the person fills it out incorrectly, it'll not let them submit the form, it'll guide them back to this question, it'll mark it red so that they have to fix something before they can move on. So one way to do this is, if I know that my students are franklinsavers.org, and I was having them write in an email address, again, I probably auto-collect it, but by checking data validation and choosing this makes it so that if a student misspells, which happens all the time, sometimes we get Franklin Savers, or we get Franken Savers, or they forget a character somewhere. So by actually typing this and doing some data validation, if the kid did misspell that, then it would prompt them to fix it. Doesn't help the part that would be before the email address, however. So if they misspell their own name, there's no way to say that for what that should be. You can give some error text, so this might say, hey, double check franklinsavers.org, you might have misspelled it, and that'll prompt them. So depending on the question type, text question, depending on the question type, there are different choices for data validation. This is a really powerful area to kind of save yourself maybe some email tag or some follow-up with a student later if you can kind of program this a little bit to the question. Did you think of your example?
I did.
You did. Go for it.
I usually use it to shuffle questions, especially when I'm doing quizzes.
Okay.
If they're in the classroom and they're using the iPad, they're sometimes sitting right next to each other, they'll just flip over and be like, oh, maybe that's the right answer.
Right.
They're just going based on where it looks.
So what she's referring to, I did a text question as my example. So we have a teacher here in the class, or in the session, that was saying still choose, if she does like a multiple choice question, the data validation, or I'm sorry, the advanced settings choice, it's not really data validation, the advanced settings choice for that question gives her the shuffle option order. So kids sitting next to each other will help maybe if they're looking over each other's shoulder, the answers will be in all different orders. You would want to, then designing your form, you would probably not, well, tell me what you do, I guess. Do you put A, B, C, D, or do you just put the answer?
I just put the answer.
Yeah, that's what I would do too. I wouldn't put A, B, C, D because it'll just look funky for everybody because it's different order. So you probably just put the answer to that question. Any other uses for advanced settings that people use? I saw a few other head nods when we were talking here in the room. Yeah.
Sometimes I'll essay questions I'll come in.
Okay.
They don't write me a textbook that I have to read.
Yeah, perfect. So what he's saying is you choose a paragraph text question, and if you come down here under advanced settings, here's the data validation. So you set probably a maximum character count. What do you typically put, do you know?
250.
He puts 250 so that the student can't write beyond that. So then if the student is writing in that box, does it stop at that point for them? 250 characters, yeah.
Characters, so
Sure. So a great way to kind of limit that if you anticipate or want the kids to also probably synthesize their writing a little bit better. Okay, any others? Yeah.
I'm not positive in this, but isn't there one that requires a unique answer? Like, for instance, we use student numbers, so they couldn't put someone else's student number.
Right.
I can't remember if it's this or not, but I think I've done something like it. In the text, or it has to be unique.
So since we're mentioning numbers, I don't know if it's in here, but we'll take a look. So if I choose data validation for a text question where they're going to enter a number, you can say if it's between a certain range. So if it's something like student IDs and you know all of your student IDs are between 501 and 701, you could limit this that it has to be between that range. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
I can't read it, something like that, so that they couldn't just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Gotcha. So they couldn't just fly through the form. Yeah, something with text and data validation for the number would probably help with that. So that's data validation. Again, depending on the type and what you need to do or what you're asking, great way to kind of plan for that ahead of time. Okay, let me zoom back out here. Let me just double check make sure the Hangout's still working. Oh, that's cool. It's like two mirrors looking at each other. That's great. So we covered that. Okay, so in the form, let's just do a few questions here. So I'm going to do name as text. I won't use data validation. If I did a multiple choice question, which is the correct answer, I'm just going to put A, B, C, D, because I'm going to show another example of how this can be used. I have two questions in there. Okay, so as I'm building my form, I might want to wonder what this is looking like. Are we good, Chief? Yeah. I might want to know what this looks like in terms of what it's going to look like for the audience. So up here at the top is the View Live form. If I click on View Live form, this is what the user is going to see or the student is going to see. So I've got two tabs. It opened it for me in a new tab. So here's the View Live form. That just gives you a preview of what it's going to look like. Oops, I clicked it again there. So there's the form as it is. If I wanted to, I could copy this link. So I just click in my Omnibox or my Omnibar. I highlight that, I copy it. Maybe I post it on my teacher website. Maybe I post that to my classroom. We've been exploring Google Classroom over the last day or two. Maybe I email it out to my students if I have an email group. You just have to get this link to your students. So then that's the link from the live form. I like to point this out, as silly as it might sound, because this, a lot of times what I'll do with teachers, or if I'm working with a staff member, they'll copy this link. This is where you're editing the form. And if you send this link to someone, it doesn't work. This isn't for them to fill out. This is for where you edit. So you always have to send them the live form. Okay. What else was I going to show there? Oh, the other buttons up here. So the other buttons up at the top here, if you want to set a theme for your form, if I go to change theme, over here on the right side, you get all these different themes. These got added, I think, a year or two ago now. So you kind of give a look to your form. When you choose this, it gives, it previews the look here. And when you're in the change theme mode, this lets me click, choose different themes, cats, of course, because we were talking cats earlier in the keynote. So you choose the theme. You have to, in order to go back to editing, if I try to click on this right now, it's not going to let me edit. This is pressed in. I got to click edit questions to go back to edit my questions. I point that out because staff members I've worked with have gotten confused and they're on this setting and they're like, how do I get back to my questions? It's not working. One thing I really like with them adding the ability to do these themes is you can customize your themes now. So what we've been doing in our district is if I go to customize for a theme, it starts with this theme, so I chose this beach-looking theme. When you hit customize under that theme, you can tweak all these different settings. So if you really want to brand something, you can actually change this header. So, you know what? And I didn't link it up in my slides. I will add this afterwards. I'll go back and I'll put this in my slides. What we've done in our district is we made a template for the header of a Google form as a Google drawing file. So we'll design a Google drawing file, and then we'll save it out and we'll upload it as this image so that it has our school logo. Or forms, if you fill out a form for EdTechTeam, you've probably seen they have the EdTechTeam logo at the top. This is how they have the banner, the header. Is customizable. You can change the image if you have another picture or you design something that you want to upload. You can change everything in here. If you're getting into graphic design and desktop layout and such, you can get into the fonts, you can bold for the title. You can change the description for the font here. The questions, you can make them, bigger, smaller. Just depends if you want to take the time to play with that. I think choosing just a regular theme that's listed there is fine. You don't have to do this. This is for those that like to give a look to things or want to brand things in a certain way. This view responses, this has the little spreadsheet icon next to it. This will take me to my spreadsheet where all that data is going to come. We'll do that in a little bit. The other tools up here at the top, if I go back to edit questions, there are specific add-ons that you can use in forms. So we did some add-on sessions here at the summit. Add-ons are for docs, for sheets, or for forms. And these are add-ons that developers have created that do something extra. One of the ones I'm going to get to in a little bit, you can see it's already in my list here, is check it out. If you want to use a form as a way to check out resources in your classroom, maybe you have your classroom library, maybe you have 5 phone books assigned to your classroom, you can make a form that will list things in the check-in area. Students fill it out, moves it to it's checked out until they come back and fill out the form again to check it back in. And it's very well automated. I will show you one that I created and how that works. But those are examples of things that go beyond just the basic forms. So we have options with add-ons to whatever developers create. And if I were to go into this add-ons menu, this is showing me only forms add-ons. So you can typically mouse over these, click on them, and see exactly what they do. I'm trying to think of other ones we use. We use Check It Out. We use Doc Appender. This takes data from, it says append form question responses to the bottom or to a specific Google Doc. So if you wanted the data from a form that was collected to go right to a doc, this one is created by a group called New Visions for Public Schools. And they created a lot of great, their brand is, their logo is right here. You see others by this. A lot of us use these to automate some of our processes. If I have some time, I'll try to show 1 or 2 of those here. So that's where the add-ons are. Those have been a gift. Help us do things a little bit more efficiently. Let me jump back to my notes, make sure I'm on track here. Okay. So with a form, some other things to know when you're creating a form. Bless you. Some other things to know when you're creating a form. When you want to share this form to others, it's not exactly like sharing a Google Doc. What do you notice this says up here? It says send form. It doesn't say share. This is another way you can get the form to your students. If I click on Send Form, that sends the live to email addresses if I fill this in. This will let me send the form to, or I can copy this link, or I can get an embed code if I'm using Google Sites. I was talking with some of you yesterday that have a Google site. You can click on here and get the embed code for the form, and you can put that into your Google Sites. So the Send Form button, it's not the Share button. We're used to the Share button being up here. This just gives the form out to the user. Whether you embed it, send the link, whether you want to share it to your Google+, your Facebook, your Twitter, you can click on those logos and get those out there, or you can email this out to groups. In order to share this with others, say you're working in a department or a team and you're going to build a form with someone else, you have to add collaborators. So how this works is if you did accidentally click Send Form, it says right here, looking to invite others to edit this with you or edit this form, there's a link here that says Add Collaborators. So if you accidentally go there, it's just it's a smaller link. This is where I could add a teammate. I could give them edit rights, just like sharing a Google Doc or a sheet, and that will allow them to come in, and you'll see if there's more than one user in here, one person will be one color, one person will be another color, and you can build the form together. So I point that out because the only other place that is, if you don't see that on the Send Form area, if you go under File, there's Add Collaborators is right here as well. Okay? We pause there. This is kind of the overview of the interface and some things to know. Any questions from the room here? Yeah.
Okay, how do you share it to classroom then? Would you just share the link, or is
Correct.
there a way to just, like on Facebook, there's not a way to like opt in?
Right. There's no tool yet that takes it from here and puts it into Classroom. The way to do it that we've done with our staff is they'll make the form. They will. That'd be great actually. If they had a Classroom button in it, that'd be perfect. That's awesome. Let's hope that comes. Well, maybe, you know what? In Classroom, there's a little question mark button down here. They're great with feedback. We'll add that there. I don't know how they would manage it differently from personal accounts, but that would be a good use. To answer your question, how we do it now, we get the link, and then teachers will do an announcement in class. Because you're not pushing out a file, you're not pushing out a, well, you could do it as an assignment too and just put the link in. So either an announcement or an assignment, and you just put the link in, because they're just filling out like they're using a copy of it. So that would be how I would manage it, and that's how our staff manages it right now. Yeah?
If you put it as an assignment, you have it graded, see grades, right?
So you can grade the submissions that come in here. I'm going to show, have you seen Flubaroo yet? Heard of it? Okay. We're going to demo that as a group here. So what that does is that data that comes into the spreadsheet, you can run a tool that'll grade it in the spreadsheet. That is separate from Classroom. Nothing auto connects to Classroom or anything like that. But there are options for that. Yeah. Question?
Okay, so if you're doing this as like collaboration, so you have like, let's say, 3 English teachers all teaching the same class, but different classes.
Yes.
So you decide to, you all make the quiz together,
Yep.
but then now you want to create the spreadsheet, because you only want your spreadsheet, you don't want their spreadsheet on your spreadsheet. How do you do that?
That is a great question. So the question from, in case you didn't hear it watching the slide, the question was, you're working with a team of 2 other people, you make a form together that you want to give to all your students in your 3 classes, how would you manage that? I would actually suggest you build the original together, and then you come in and make a copy for yourself, the other person make a copy for themselves, the other person make a copy for themselves, like you keep a master template somewhere of that form,
Okay.
because it's way easier to manage at your level, and your colleagues can manage theirs, and they can manage theirs. If you did do it the way you're saying, one of the questions you want to put in would probably be class period, or something that's sortable or filterable word.
Teacher class period.
Yeah, teacher class period, and then you can sort the data in a spreadsheet, and then you could like copy paste your chunk to your own sheet. At some point somewhere, you're going to probably take your data somewhere else anyway, so I would just suggest making your own copy.
Okay.
So, yeah, no problem. I like talking through those, like, how do I best manage this type of questions, because it gets a little frustrating if you get too many cooks in the kitchen. Okay, any other questions? Nobody heard that, right? Awesome, yes.
I noticed when you went to view live form, there was a button about the actual back.
Mm-hmm.
So you use that URL to live form
Yes.
and send that out, and that go back in.
That is a great question. No. So the question in the room here was, up in the top right, we have this edit this form. Only I see this because I'm an editor. If I were to send you this link right now and you come here to take this, you do not see this. This knows because I'm signed in as Chad Kafka at Franklin, that this is my form. So that's a helpful strategy I've actually seen teachers use that I really didn't anticipate. I was working with a team last semester. They gave out a form, and they knew the spreadsheet was somewhere in their Google Drive, and they, of course, could go drive and they could search. But they just came to the form that was on their class's page. They just got here, and then they just went edit form, and then they went view responses. So if you have the form linked up somewhere, it's a nice little thing that's there to get you back to edit it so you don't have to go find it somewhere else. Okay. Let me show some. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Yes, go for it.
Just follow up your question. If I create that form, share with collaborate, so you can collaborate and I don't need it for.
You can change ownership. So I would change ownership to you. I would change ownership to you if I didn't want to get the form anymore. If I delete it, you'll have the form. That can get a little messy, so you want to make sure you know what you're doing before anyone deletes anything. But each file can only have one owner. Just like any other file. Like a doc can only have one owner, or a spreadsheet or a presentation can only have one owner. Yeah, those are good things to think through, especially when you start working with your teams. Okay, let's look at some other use cases and other ways to kind of freak out when you're using forms. So this home base pass, I mentioned this earlier in my example. Let me see. This one wasn't working correctly at the end of the year, but I wanted to show this more as an example of if you wanted to embed a video. So if students were not sure what to do, or if teachers are starting the year, we're starting the year with our brand new to the building 7th graders, they can embed this video embedded on here. How that's done is when I'm editing my form. And I can start creating questions. As you create more questions, there's this Add Item button down here. If you click on this arrow next to Add Item, these are all the different things you can add. So you can see this is where I can add a video, I can add an image, I can make a page break. We use section headers if you want to break things up by section. This is just a nice little title and description field that you can fill out. So if I were to choose video, it does have to be a YouTube video. So I could either search YouTube here, or if I copy my YouTube video link, I could go to URL, paste that in, and that brings the video into my form, and then it's housed in the form. I just want to show kind of what that looks like. This home base pass that we use, the kids fill this out. Actually, I think I have a sample. Let me come back. Yeah, let me come back to the home base pass. I have a sample that I'm going to have you guys try to go to. Great tool to use with forms. If you need to grab screenshots, did you guys see the Snagit? Any Snagit users in the room? A few head nods? Okay, good. Snagit is a Chrome extension that I strongly suggest adding. Some of our workflow with our teachers I mentioned earlier. If I was giving a quiz, and let's say I was giving a quiz and these were screenshots I needed from the computer screen, maybe I was doing something in that program that had these buttons in it. Typically, I will use Snagit. I will grab a screenshot, and I will lay this out. I'll open a Google slide presentation or a Google drawing. These are just text boxes. I put a text box in these. I lay this out. Screenshots. I drag those into my drawing or my slide. Then I use Snagit to take one final picture of this. And after I take that picture, I can put that right into my form as an image. So I can go choose an image and choose to add that right in. They're clapping. Are they done? Are they done already? That's very fast. So Snagit is a tool that I use a lot with forms in that workflow. I mentioned section header. So if you wanted to give some specific directions, but you didn't want to create a whole question around it, you give a title. So we had a lot of students when they were doing our home base pass, they would get antsy. The spreadsheet had too much data in it. This was like 2 years ago. They would click submit a few times, so then we had like 4 or 5 entries in there. So we put a section header in there that just said, please only click submit, or only click submit once. Only do a single click, don't double click. That did help alleviate some issues. We still had a few issues where there might be double entries. You can. So this is another example. So we did a digital test with our students. We gave them some questions. Break it up into pages, sections. So each section started with a little header that said, this is your student demographics, your gender, how much you use technology at home and how much you use technology at school, things like that. So using those features to kind of design your form helps hopefully the user to complete it more efficiently. We covered data validation. I showed that earlier. Shuffling. We covered shuffling. No. So good question. So yeah, so the data does come into the spreadsheet. It's only questions. You don't see the section headers in the spreadsheet. The Google Shortener. Another way we use have you guys seen the Google Shortener over the last 2 days? Yeah, I think so. So if you're teaching up in the front of the classroom, and you made a form, and maybe you forgot to send the link to the student. Maybe you forgot to embed it on your website. You got it. You're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to get the kids here. If you have a Google goo.gl URL shortener up here, you can click this, and it makes a very short goo.gl address. But one of the other awesome things is this QR code. If I click this button choice, it makes a QR code. Sorry, it doesn't make that bigger. So that kids can scan this if they're using a device. Or you can drop this onto a slide, as you'll see in a minute when I have you fill out a quiz. Different ways to use those tools with forms just to get students or users to the forms quicker. The Google Shortener? Where's the question at? Who was saying that? Yeah, so in the Frome Webstore, if you do a search, it's goo.gl. And it's a vice strip. It's a green. If it comes up like. It's an extension, so it's down here under my extensions.
Okay.
So that is one I have handy all the time. So like you can create a doc on the fly while you're teaching, and you're like, hey, we're going to do class notes really quick. You open a doc, you set the rights, you Google shorten it, the kids can get in, and then you save all that management, all that time trying to get the link to the students. Yeah. And then, so when you click it, it'll show a QR code. It works based on whatever you're currently looking at. So if I wanted everyone to get to a certain page, say I wanted to get you all right to this, I have my slides already set here, so anyone with the link can see that. I would click the Google shortener, and if you either type in this address or you go to this QR code, it'll take you right to this spot. You don't have to do this now because this is linked on my resource for this session, but that's just an example of if I wanted to get this to you quickly, how can we use technology to help make that transaction happen? Yeah.
I use another extension with that crafty text.
Okay.
You can make the text. My kids are getting the QR code if they're trying to take in that little code.
Yeah.
I use that to make
Crafty text. Okay.
Really
So another, just for the people watching live, another extension mentioned for that workflow is crafty text. Okay, let me get to my samples here. All right. Try to make this, it's not going to go bigger because it's on a slide. I want you guys to take a quiz. I'm going to leave this up here. If you and those watching live can do this as well. This is sample quiz. This is goo.gl. This is here after the slash. Capital C. Jess, maybe if you're watching, you want to throw this in the chat. Capital C, little W, D, little W, D, R, or if you are able to scan the code. This is a very quick 5-question quiz. Multiple choice. So you're going to take the quiz as my students, and then I'm going to grade this using the Lulucom add-on. And Jess or Jim, if you guys are on audio, do we have any questions that have come in yet? I'll leave this slide up here, but if you guys have anything to share, if you want to mention that, and I can maybe try to address questions from our live watching audience.
Yeah, hi Chad. Looks like everything is fine. There's no questions in the chat. We're just trying to figure out how to get that link up here. Oh, no, now it's on the screen. So
did my screen share fall away again?
nope, it's all good now.
I'm good? Okay. Questions are meant to be not educational. A little silly, just to show if you're doing multiple choice how you can do that. Oh, sorry. People are watching. I'll leave that up there. Okay, in a little bit here, I'm going to switch away from this slide if you're watching live. And I'm going to switch away in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I'm going to go set up the next thing. A lot of trash. Okay, I think we've had enough time, hopefully, to take the quiz. Oh, wait a sec. There we go. Oh, wow, that's funny. I did this similar quiz with a group last year on the same dates. I'm looking at, I was going through to delete old entries real quick so I didn't accidentally send something to others. And I had this in here from last year. That's kind of funny. Okay, so workflow for this. How this works. What I did very quickly there, because I realized I think I accidentally deleted the answers, was I took the quiz myself as the master key. So in order to use Flubaroo, which I'm going to demo real quick right now, you have to take the quiz as yourself. So you typically want to title it master. I probably would have typed this in all caps so it would stick out a little bit. When I go to my spreadsheet then, here's all the data. Okay. The add-on I'm going to use, if I go up to add-ons, I can get Flubaroo from the get add-ons area. I've already done this. And I'm going to go through this a little quick because I know I showed this yesterday in another session. So what Flubaroo allows you to do is you go to the add-on, you choose to grade the assignment. This walks you through, and it first asks you which of the questions here, what types of questions are they, what grading options. So for these first set of questions where you did your first name, your last name, your class hour, your email address, those are all identifiers. So I'm going to leave those as identify students. Okay. The ones after that, if I leave it as normal grading, I can then assign a point value to it between 1 and, oh, they increase it to 10, 1 and 10. So if you had to weight questions on a multiple choice question quiz, you could. They added this new feature, and I didn't have a question in here to show you this, but there's this grade by hand, which is new. So you mentioned, sir, how you were doing the, you would give like an open-ended question and maybe give a character limit. Now, if you do a question like that and you choose grade by hands for that one, you can go in, when you use Flubaroo, you can read it over and you can assign a score that will still tabulate into the total. You used to not be able to do that. So this is super handy. This just came out, I think right as school was getting out in the spring here. So that is definitely a new feature that you want to check out. If you go, the website is blueberry.com, and they do post whenever they do new updates, and there's a video there that shows how that works. For the purpose of our demo, we're going to leave these as one question, or 1 point value questions. So we're going to hit continue. The first marker questions is how they should be graded. The second page then shows all the submissions. And here's my master key. So I'm going to choose master. So you're picking the master key. This is doing like a Scantron machine does, where you're running the master through and it's comparing everybody else's to that data. So grading is now complete. So what it just did, let me... Say that again? I went very quickly. I didn't read it. What did it say? Yes. Yes. Yes, you can do more than one answer. I was trying to hide you guys' name there. So see that. So yes, you can now accept more than one answer. I actually haven't used that yet. Have you used that in your class?
No, I mean not on this, but I definitely.
Yeah. That's a bonus. So if you had like 2 answers out of the 4, you could say either one of these is correct. Yeah, that's great. So what this does, Blueberry gives you then, I don't know if you saw what happened here, it made a second spreadsheet at the bottom here called grades. And each of your submissions is a row. And some things to point out here. So some things that this shows. If it's marked red, and I'm sorry to embarrass anybody live watching or in the room, this is highly intellectual quiz that you took. But if you are red, you got below a 70%. So that is a visual indicator that maybe got a lower score. Let's see what else. Oh, for each of the questions, if you wanted to see what the student got wrong, you can come over here, and you'll see that if it's a 1, that's correct. If it's a 0, that's incorrect. This always happens with this quiz, and I made this quiz just in like 5 minutes whenever I first use it. I'm glad it happens. This, being marked orange, means that the class overall, the average for the class, which if I scroll to the bottom of the spreadsheet, the average is 51% got it correct on this question, 97 got it correct on this question, so on and so forth. This means that less than 60% of the class got it correct. So I like that that happens, only to show that as a point. Hey, seriously, guys? This one we didn't get correct either. Did I mention I was from Wisconsin? I thought that was a gimme question. Although I've noticed, and I saw this in the group yesterday, I did this with, the group yesterday was like, we're not picking your stupid package, we're going to pick something else. So, yeah. So just to make it a bad question, exactly. So good that it happens is the example of the orange happening. But this is all your data. So now you've got over here, too, it says that, you know, what the percentage was, total points or percentage, depending on how you're grading, and you've got all your data. So typically teachers run this. If you're doing it for 4 classes, they'll do it at the end. You can rerun it. That's always a common question I get when I'm working with a staff member. You can rerun it, and it'll just update the newer ones. Here's the awesome part, if you haven't seen this. In Flubaroo, then, once it's all graded, I can go. I can email this grade to you then, individually. So when I choose email grades, and you want to use strategy with how you do this. When you email the grades, you have to have an email question. So that's where it comes in handy. Way back in the beginning when I said check the box that auto collects their email addresses, then you don't hit any weirdness here where it lets you where the kid may not get the email. So if you choose email address, here you can include the list of questions and scores by checking the box. You can use that, you know, if all the kids have taken the quiz, or if they're using this as a study for the next quiz, maybe this was a quick formative and you want them to see the right answers, you're building towards the summative. You can include the answer key, you get a choice for that, if or if not, and you can write a message. Hey, thanks for taking this quiz. Viva Las Vegas. Better luck next time. Go back, go. So right now, that message is going out to all of you that filled this out. You'll get an email in the next minute or 2. And take a look when you get the email of the layout. It's really nice. Like they make the questions green, or they make the questions red if you got them right or wrong. It lays it out very well, especially if the kids are using Gmail, which they are, because they did this in the Googleverse. So definite plus there for how you can use this. I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry. Ah, yes. Well, so the question is, can the students get the feedback in a different way than email? No, it is an email. Right. So the group here in the room is talking about how some schools have it open for students, some don't. So take that up with whoever manages or filters your tech at your building, and definitely get that open. Never have enough time for this one. So this was another one that I'm going to show you a few other uses for forms. This is very similar to one we just did. This is another add-on called Super Quiz. I did link up the tutorial for it. I always show Flubaroo because that's a very good entry level one. Super Quiz is like Flubaroo on crack. It gives you so much more data that you can parse through when you do a quiz with students. So if you really like Flubaroo or you've been using Flubaroo for a while, try out Super Quiz. Don't do it now. I'm not going to be able to have time to demo this one, but this one gives you some more features when you are grading when you're grading quizzes. Okay, this one I'm going to show quickly before somebody does it. This is the add-on. The add-on is called Check It Out. So this is what the form looks like. And I got to show this because somebody's going to go to it and check something out, and it's going to be kind of funny here. So with Check It Out, this is an add-on that you run. You make a form. So in this class, we're going to pretend that I've got 5 Chromebooks, okay? And kids can come up. Maybe they're in a cabinet. Kids can come up and check them out. Maybe this is library books. Maybe this is some other resource. You have this maybe as a bookmark on the class computer, or kids have it, or it's a link on your board. They can quickly type it in. What happens with this add-on is you set up your questions. So you do a name question. You obviously want to know who has the thing. And then as soon as the first user comes in here, and if I were to check Chromebook 1B, as soon as the first user does that and hits submit, it moves this to this question so that it shows that it's currently, oh wait, check in devices, check out. Or yeah, to check out the device, meaning I'm going to go take it and use it, it moves it down here until that person is done with it. They come back to the form, they click it here, and then it moves it back up there. I don't know how this works, but it's awesome. It's great for just quick little, classroom management type things. How you run it is you start a form, and so I did this earlier. I just made a quick, put a title in there, I put a name. You don't do these questions until you get to the add-on. So the add-on, from the add-on menu up here, if I go to check it out, it lets me add or edit a question set. And so over here you get some choices. I'm not going to add a new one because that'll kind of mess up what this one does. But when I was creating this, I click Add New. I said that these were checking out set name. I think I titled these as Chromebooks. What did I label this? Yes, I did a multiple choice. I chose to check out Chromebooks. It makes the question, and then I came over here and in the question, once this creates the question set, it makes a check-in and a check-out. I came over here, I edited this just by clicking on it, and I typed my multiple choice answers. So this sets up the structure, and then it allows it to work. So to demo that real quick, so it looks like, let me refresh here and see if anyone got to it yet. Nope. So let's say I'm Billy, and I went to Mr. Kafka's form, and I'm going to check out Chromebook 1B. I hit submit. Okay, so that one's checked out to me, Billy. Now, if the next person that comes to the form, oh, I wonder if I broke it. I might have broke it when I just tried to add another set. I have to try this again. I worried as soon as I was clicking that. I wondered if I was messing up the system.
Hey, Chad, can you share your screen again?
And then if Billy or Tommy comes back, clicks this, and moves it back up here. So you could have the form parked somewhere as a way for kids to check things out. Pretty simple add-on to use with the form, and it does all the switching of in and out items for you. Oh, that's why. Your audio, I think you dropped.
Thanks, Chad.
Hey. Are you guys there?
Yep, yeah, sorry, your screen just fell off for a second, but we've been watching on the other camera, so no worries.
Okay, cool.
Keep the awesome going.
All right, cool. Screen share, entire screen. So check in, check out, that's another example. Let me mute myself here. Linked up in the slides if you choose to explore that later. Another one, any administrators in the room? Okay, so do you have to keep track of like gas when you travel between schools or to district office or things like that? So one thing we did was, one example I used in the district, I made a very simple form just for myself. And when I made the form, I listed a multiple choice question by building. So I said the 5 buildings I travel between, where I was going from, which building I was leaving, to which building I was going to, and then the date and timestamps it, so I didn't have to do a date. But this form was just for me. So what this is doing then is as I collect that data, it'll go into a spreadsheet. So when I sit down and do my monthly expenses that I have to report to the district, I would just quickly tabulate like how many miles I went in that month based on the data I collected in the form. How do I easily do that? I would go to the live view form and I would send that to myself on my phone or open it on my phone. And I would use the thing on my phone where I'm in the browser and I can say add to my home screen. So my workflow then is I'm walking out of one building going into the next building. I would tap the form on my phone. I'm going from Forest Park to Ben Franklin, submit, and I've got that reported for the day. So then I would sit down and add all those miles up later, and we had another spreadsheet that would auto tabulate it for us. So another way to track things. If you got to track things personally for yourself, maybe you're in an instructional coach role and you want to track meetings with teachers. You can make a quick form for yourself and just for you. You don't have to give a form to other people. It could just be a way for you to log that data in a spreadsheet so you have record of when you met with maybe teachers on a caseload or students on a caseload or whatever. So tracking. Student behavior logs, another example. We had a student that was a little difficult, and there's none of those here, right? You guys don't have difficult students? No? So the guidance department has been working with parents, and we had to keep very diligent records of what was occurring when, if the student was saying inappropriate words in class, or in this case, this was there was a behavior log that we made. This one was these were different writing strategies they were using with particular students to try to increase their writing. We had some school goals that we set to increase subsets of students. So this teacher made a form where they log what the student did on that day, just to be able to talk with the rest of the team. Behavior forms as well. I started talking behavior form. A way to have that data all in one place, and maybe there's 3 or 4 teachers, and you pick whoever's filling it out, if it's Mrs. K or Mrs. F or Mrs. B, and then you know who had the incident with the student. Our digital pass system, I already showed that we set up for our staff, so at homeroom time, they would know where they're going from, where they're going to. The current filtering isn't working correctly, so we've got to fix that before the school year starts back up. I was going to have you guys do this one, don't do it. But that's just basically a log of where the kids are going for the day. And then when the staff start homeroom time, they have a link to the spreadsheet, and the entries are set to only show today's entries. And so they know that I should have Johnny, Peter, and Susie, and the teacher that normally has them knows where they are. It lists the teacher they're from, the teacher they're at. Just a way we kind of got rid of paper passes. We had 20 minutes at the end of the day, and we found kids were spending so much time getting a paper pass, going to the teacher they're supposed to be with, getting that teacher to sign off on it, and going to the teacher they were going to work with, and then it was like they had 10 minutes left. So this was way easier to set up. I did link up an example if you kind of want to model that in your district. That's in the slides. So, all that being said, we have about a minute left. These are just some other examples. I will go back and I'll add that banner header in here. I'm going to throw it out to questions in the room first, and then I'm going to touch base with people that might be watching live. Any questions? Okay. There are many other tools we didn't get to. Some other things I'll mention if you want to explore. Other add-ons that I use regularly, Form Mule. Form Mule takes data, merges it into email. You had to fill out a form I was working with somebody yesterday. They had some staff submit usernames for services through a form, and they wanted to also email that staff like a receipt. Formule is another great add-on. It's a spreadsheet add-on. It's not a form add-on. That one helps you automate. As soon as somebody hits submit, they get a copy of it. So if you're working district level or building level and you're trying to automate some processes, Formule is one that can help with that. AutoCred is another one. When you, I showed AutoCred yesterday to a group, lets you merge data into a document and then send that document to someone as well. Thank you so much for coming. Hopefully give you guys some ideas. If it was a little wonky between the live and the in-person, I apologize for that, but hopefully got some good information, and take a look at what session you're going to do next. So thank you.
Thank you, Chad, from online. Yay!
Yay! All right, here we go.
If you're watching online, we'll have this archived at the event page, and we'll mail it out to you guys. Thank you so much, Chad, for sharing so many awesome forum activities. It looks like on the back channel we got, everyone was really great with sharing. If there's any questions, we'll stay in the back channel for a bit, and you can tweet Chad at Chad Kafka and at EdTechTeam. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Yeah, were there any other, so I'm looking in today's meet right now, any other questions I can answer? I don't think so. Like people sharing some resources there.
Awesome. I think we're good, Chad. Thanks so much, and thanks for helping with all of the technology. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no
Have
problem.
a good rest of the day in Vegas. Everyone enjoyed hearing you here in Chicago.
Okay, good deal. We'll take care. I'm going to hang up.
All right, I'll stop the broadcast. Bye, Chad.